The Great Hall of the Galactic Council was quiet. Hundreds of alien representatives sat in their seats, watching the small group of humans who stood at the center of the room. The humans looked so ordinary, so fragile. That was what most species thought when they first saw them. Captain Daniel Harris stood with his hands behind his back. He was a tall man with gray at his temples and calm eyes that had seen many difficult things. Behind him stood his crew. Dr. Lisa Morgan, the ship's scientist, a woman with sharp eyes and a quick mind. Lieutenant Kevin Brooks, head of security, built like a fighter with scars on his hands. Maria Santos, the engineer who could fix anything. And Derek Cole, the young communications expert who could learn any language. Council Representative Zereth stepped forward. He was a Volante, a species that looked like tall blue insects with 4 arms. His voice clicked and buzzed as he spoke, and the translation devices turned his words into English. Captain Harris, Zereth said, "The Council has called you here because we have a problem. A problem that we believe only humans might solve." Harris nodded but said nothing. He had learned that aliens often took a long time to get to the point. Zereth touched a control, and a hologram appeared in the center of the room. It showed a planet. But this was not like any planet Harris had seen before. It was dark red and black, covered in swirling clouds. Lightning flashed across its surface constantly, making it look alive and angry. "This is KX-447, Zereth said. "It is a Class-15 Deathworld." A murmur went through the council. Harris heard Lisa take a sharp breath behind him. "Class-15, she whispered. "That's the highest rating possible." Zereth heard her. "Yes, Dr. Morgan, the highest. To give you some comparison, your home planet Earth is rated Class 12, most. Species in this council come from worlds rated between Class 3 and Class 6. A Class 15 world should be completely impossible for any life to exist." "Should be?" Harris asked. "That is the problem." Zereth changed the hologram. Now it showed energy readings, graphs and numbers that meant little to most people in the room. But Lisa understood them. Her eyes went wide. "Those readings," she said, "they suggest organized energy patterns. Like technology." "Correct," Zereth said. "We have detected what appears to be artificial structures on the surface. Signs of intelligent construction. But this cannot be. Nothing could survive on KX-447. The temperature ranges from -200 to +400 degrees. The atmosphere contains 17 compounds that are lethal to all known life. The gravity is more than 3 times Earth's standard. Wind speeds reach 800 kilometers per hour. Ambassador Kraft, a fat creature that looked like a purple slug, spoke up. "We have sent 47 probes to this world. All were destroyed within minutes of entering the atmosphere. We have lost 3 unmanned ships. The planet kills everything that approaches it. Then why not leave it alone?" Lieutenant Brooks asked. His voice was rough and direct. Aliens often found human directness uncomfortable. "Because," Zereth said slowly, "the energy readings are growing stronger. Something on that world is waking up, and we do not know if it is friendly or dangerous. We must know what is down there." Harris looked at the hologram of the angry planet. "And you want us to go look?" "Humans are the only species in the known galaxy that evolved on a death world," Zereth said. "Your bodies are stronger than they appear. Your minds can handle stress that would break other species. You have a history of surviving impossible conditions. If anyone can land on KX-447 and return alive, it would be humans." "You mean if anyone can die trying, it should be humans," Brooks said. Several council members shifted uncomfortably. Zereth did not deny it. Harris was quiet for a long moment. He looked at his crew. Lisa's eyes were bright with curiosity. She wanted to go. Brooks looked ready for a fight, as always. Maria was already thinking about what modifications the ship would need. Derek just looked nervous, but he would follow wherever Harris led. "What do we get if we succeed?" Harris asked. "The gratitude of the Galactic Council," Xerxes said. "And answers. Do you not want to know what could possibly live on such a world?" Harris smiled slightly. That was the thing about humans that aliens never quite understood. Humans were curious. They could not leave a mystery alone. It was why they had spread across their own dangerous world. It was why they had reached for the stars. And it was why Harris knew he would say yes. "We will do it," he said. The council chamber erupted in noise. Some aliens protested. Others simply stared. A few looked relieved that someone else would take the risk. Xerxes raised his forearms for silence. "You understand this may be a journey with no return." "Every journey might be the last one," Harris said. "That has never stopped us before." As the humans left the council chamber, Xerxes turned to his aide. "They will die," he said quietly. "But perhaps they will send back useful data before the end." His aide, a young Volante, watched the humans walk away. There was something in how they moved. Not afraid. Not foolish either. Just ready. "What if they succeed?" the aide asked. Xerxes made a sound that might have been a laugh. "No one succeeds on a Class-15 world. That is why it has that rating." But as he watched Captain Harris and his crew disappear through the doors, Xerxes felt something strange. Something he had not felt in centuries of politics and careful planning. It took him a moment to recognize the feeling. It was doubt. The humans walked toward their ship. The Endurance, already planning, already preparing. They had 3 weeks to get ready for the impossible. For Daniel Harris and his crew, that was more than enough time. They were human. Impossible was just another word for not yet done. The Endurance was not the biggest ship in the human fleet. It was not the fastest or the most powerful. But it was tough. Built for exploration, for going places other ships could not go. Captain Harris had chosen it himself for exactly this kind of mission. For 3 weeks, the crew prepared. They did not waste a single hour. Dr. Lisa Morgan spent her days studying every piece of data about KX-447. She filled screens with information about the atmosphere, the temperature changes, the radiation levels. The more she learned, the more she understood why no one had survived this world. It was not just dangerous. It was actively hostile, as if the planet itself wanted to kill anything that came near. Lieutenant Brooks trained the crew in heavy gravity. He pushed them hard, making them run and fight and work while wearing weights that made every movement difficult. "The planet has 3 times our gravity," he told them. "If you cannot move down there, you die." Simple as that. Maria Santos worked on the landing shuttle. She added extra shielding to the hull. She installed backup systems for the backup systems. She reinforced the engines and the life support. When she was done, the shuttle was twice as heavy as before. But it could take a beating that would destroy any normal craft. Derek Cole learned everything he could about the energy patterns coming from the planet. He studied the signals, looking for any hint of language or meaning. He found nothing clear, but something about the patterns felt deliberate, organized, not natural. On the final day before arrival, Harris called his crew together. "I will not lie to you," he said. "This might kill us. The council thinks we are already dead. They just want whatever data we can send back before we crash." He looked at each of them. "But I have seen what this crew can do. I have watched you face things that should have been impossible. So here is what I believe. I believe we are going to land on that planet. I believe we are going to find out what is down there. And I believe we are going to come home. Any questions?" No one spoke. They did not need to. They trusted their captain. More than that, they trusted each other. The Endurance dropped out of faster-than-light travel near KX447. The planet filled the view screen, and for a moment, no one said anything. It was worse than the hologram had shown. The clouds moved like living things, twisting and churning. Lightning struck the surface hundreds of times every second, creating a constant glow beneath the darkness. The whole world looked like it was at war with itself. "Sensors are having trouble," Derek reported. "The electromagnetic interference is incredible. I can barely get readings through all that noise." "What about the structures?" Harris asked. "Can you confirm they are real?" Derek worked his controls. "Yes, there is definitely something artificial down there. Big. Really big. But I cannot tell what kind of structures they are." "Then we go down and look," Harris said. "Maria, is the shuttle ready?" "Ready as it will ever be," she said. "I wish I had another month to work on it, but it should hold." "Should?" Brooks raised an eyebrow. Maria shrugged. "You want promises?" "Wrong job." The landing team suited up. Harris, Morgan, Brooks, and Santos would go down. Cole would stay on the Endurance to maintain communication and coordinate rescue if needed. If rescue was even possible, the shuttle launched from the Endurance and began its descent toward the clouds. Almost immediately, the problems started. Wind hit them like a giant fist. The shuttle spun sideways, and Maria fought the controls to straighten them out. Lightning struck the hull once, twice, 3 times. Alarms screamed. The temperature outside climbed so high that the outer hull began to glow. "Shields at 60%, Maria shouted over the noise. "We need to find the calm zone," Harris said. Derek said there was a gap in the storm pattern in the northern hemisphere. "Trying to get there," Maria said through clenched teeth. "The wind keeps pushing us south." Brooks sat strapped in his seat, hands gripping the armrests. He was not a man who scared easily, but this was different from any enemy he had faced. You could not fight a storm. You could not shoot lightning. Lisa watched her instruments with wide eyes. "The atmosphere is even worse than we thought. I am reading compounds that should not exist together. This planet breaks the rules of chemistry." Another lightning strike. The lights flickered. For a terrible moment, everything went dark. Then the backup systems kicked in, and they were flying again. "There," Maria said suddenly. "I see it. The gap in the storm." She pushed the shuttle forward with everything it had. The engines roared. The hull groaned. For 30 seconds, Harris thought they were going to shake apart in the air. Then they broke through. The clouds parted, and suddenly they could see the surface. The wind dropped. The lightning stopped. It was like passing through a door from chaos into calm. But what they saw below made them forget everything else. There were buildings. Not small structures. Not ruins scattered across the ground. Cities. Vast cities stretching to the horizon in every direction. Towers that reached toward the clouds. Roads that cut across the dark landscape in perfect lines. Empty, silent, but clearly built by intelligent hands. "That is impossible," Lisa whispered. "Apparently not," Harris said. He looked at the ancient city below them, at the evidence of a civilization that should not exist. "Take us down, Maria. Nice and slow. We need to see this up close." The shuttle descended toward a clear space between the massive towers. As they got closer, they could see more details. The buildings were made of some dark metal that reflected no light. Strange symbols covered the walls. Everything was still, frozen in time. "This place is old," Lisa said, checking her readings. "Really old. Millions of years, maybe. And someone built it on a Class-15 Deathworld," Brooks said. "How? Why?" No one had an answer. But they were about to find out. The shuttle touched down with a gentle bump. Through the windows, the empty city waited for them. Waited to share its secrets. Harris stood up. Let us go see what the galaxy has been so afraid of. The airlock opened, and then the team stepped onto the surface of KX-447. The gravity hit them immediately, pulling at their bodies like heavy hands. Every step took effort. Every breath was work. But they had trained for this, and they kept moving. Harris led the way, his boots crunching on ground that looked like black glass. The air outside was poison, but their suits protected them. The temperature was hot enough to cook meat, but the cooling systems kept them alive. Everything about this world wanted them dead. They walked anyway. The city rose around them like a forest of dark metal. The buildings were massive, built for creatures much larger than humans. Doorways stood 3 meters tall. Windows were the size of garage doors. Whoever had lived here, they had been giants. These structures are incredible, Lisa said. Her voice came through the communication system, clear despite the distance. The materials are like nothing in our records. They have survived millions of years in these conditions without breaking down. That is good engineering, Maria said, running her hand along a wall. I would love to know how they made this. Brooks kept his weapon ready, scanning the empty streets. He saw no movement, no signs of life. But he could not shake the feeling that they were being watched. Old soldier instincts. They had saved his life more than once. There, Harris said, pointing ahead. That building is larger than the others. Looks important. The structure he indicated was at the center of a wide plaza. It had a different shape than the towers around it. More like a dome, with strange patterns carved into its surface. The patterns seemed to move in the dim light, though that might have been a trick of the eye. They crossed the plaza. The ground was smooth here, without the cracks and damage they had seen elsewhere. Someone had taken special care of this place. The entrance was open, a dark doorway leading inside. Harris switched on his helmet light and stepped through. The others followed. Inside, the building was one vast chamber. The ceiling disappeared into darkness above them, and the walls were covered in pictures. These are records, Lisa said, moving closer to examine them. Like cave paintings, but far more detailed. They are telling a story. The pictures showed figures, tall beings with long limbs and large heads. They were shown building, creating, working together. The images continued around the room, telling the history of a civilization. They were peaceful, Lisa said, tracing the pictures with her fingers. Look, no weapons, no war. They built things. They explored. They created. Harris moved deeper into the chamber. At the center stood a pedestal, and on it sat a device that looked like a crystal sphere. As he approached, the sphere began to glow. Motion activated. Derek's voice came through from the ship. I am detecting a power surge from your location. Light burst from the sphere, filling the room. Holographic images appeared in the air around them. And a voice began to speak. It was not a language anyone recognized. But it was clearly speech, with patterns and rhythms that suggested meaning. Derek worked frantically on the Endurance, running the sounds through every translation program he had. Give me time, he said. This is complex. Very old. But I think I can figure it out. While Derek worked, the hologram showed them more of the story. They saw the tall beings living on a beautiful world. Green and blue, with clean skies and calm seas. Nothing like the hell outside. Then the holograms changed. Dark shapes appeared. Ships that looked wrong somehow, twisted and hungry. They came from the stars, and wherever they went, they left nothing behind. Planets burned. Species vanished. The darkness spread across the galaxy like a disease. The Devourers, Derek said suddenly. His voice was shaking. That is what the recording calls them. The Devourers. They consumed everything. Every world. Every species. Nothing could stop them. The hologram showed the tall beings trying to fight. Their weapons did nothing. Their defenses fell. They were pushed back planet by planet until only their home world remained. They were going to lose, Lisa said quietly. They could not win. So they did something else, Derek translated. They could not beat the enemy, but they could take away what the enemy wanted. They changed their own world. They made it into something the Devourers could not use. The hologram showed the transformation. The peaceful beings turning their beautiful planet into a nightmare, filling the air with poison, heating the surface until nothing could grow, creating storms that would last forever. They sacrificed everything they had built to deny it to their enemy. They made it into a death world, Harris said. On purpose. And it worked, Derek continued. The Devourers could not survive here. They tried to land, and they died. They tried to wait in orbit, and the beings had weapons hidden in the storms. Eventually, the Devourers left. They could not have this world, so they moved on to easier targets. Where are the builders now? Brooks asked. The ones who did this? Derek was quiet for a moment, listening to the recording. When he spoke again, his voice was sad. They died too. The changes they made killed them along with everything else. They knew it would happen. They did it anyway. They chose to die free rather than be consumed. The hologram showed the last of the tall beings, standing in this very chamber, recording their message. They looked tired but not defeated. They had won, even if it cost them everything. There is more, Derek said. They left a warning. The recording changed again. A map of the galaxy appeared, with hundreds of points marked in red. The Devourers did not leave, Derek translated. They went to sleep. They are still out there, on dead worlds and in empty space, waiting. When they sense enough new life, enough food, they will wake up. And they will come back to finish what they started. Harris stared at the map. Hundreds of locations. Hundreds of sleeping monsters. We need to get this information to the council, he said. Everyone needs to know. Captain, Derek said. There's one more thing. The recording includes coordinates. Places where the builders hid technology, weapons, defenses, things that might actually hurt the Devourers. They left it behind for whoever came after them. For anyone brave enough to come to this world and learn the truth. Lisa looked at the crystal sphere, still glowing on its pedestal. They sacrificed themselves, but they did not give up. They left us a chance. Then we take it, Harris said. Download everything. We are bringing this home. Outside, the storms still raged. But inside the ancient chamber, the humans had found something more valuable than they had imagined. A warning, a gift, and a mission that would change everything. The galaxy was not as safe as it believed. And humanity had just become the only species that knew the truth. The journey back to orbit was easier than the descent. Maria knew the storm patterns now, knew where the calm paths were. The shuttle climbed through the clouds and docked with the Endurance without trouble. But the real challenge was just beginning. Captain Harris stood in the communication room, looking at the faces of the Galactic Council on the main screen. He had transmitted all their data ahead of time. Every recording, every image, every coordinate. The Council had seen everything the team found on KX-447, and they did not believe any of it. This is clearly a mistake, Representative Zurith said. His voice was cold. Your equipment malfunctioned in the extreme conditions. The data is corrupted. Our equipment was fine, Lisa said. She stood next to Harris, frustration clear on her face. I checked everything 3 times. The recordings are real. The structures are real. We walked among them. Even if the structures exist, Ambassador Krass said, the story they tell is fantasy. An ancient species transformed their own world into a Class-15 death world to escape an enemy. And this enemy is somehow still alive, sleeping across hundreds of worlds? It sounds like a children's story. Harris kept his voice calm, though he wanted to shout. We are not asking you to believe us. We are showing you proof. Send your own ships. Go see for yourselves. No ship of ours can survive that planet, Xereth said. You are the only ones who claim to have landed there. Perhaps you never landed at all. Perhaps this is some human trick to gain importance in the council. Brooks stepped forward, anger in his eyes. You think we risked our lives for a trick? You think we flew through that hell for politics? I think humans are known for their strange behavior, Krath said. Your species does things that make no sense to logical minds. This could easily be another example. Harris held up his hand to stop Brooks from responding. He took a deep breath. The recording showed coordinates. Hundreds of locations where these devourers are sleeping. Send probes. Investigate. If we are wrong, you lose nothing. If we are right, and you ignore this, you lose everything. The council members looked at each other. Harris could see them thinking, calculating. Not about the threat. About politics. About what it would cost them to admit the humans might be right. We will discuss this in private, Xereth said finally. Wait for our decision. The screen went dark. Harris stood there for a long moment, staring at nothing. They are not going to do anything, Maria said quietly. No, Harris agreed. They are not. The council's decision came 2 hours later. They had voted to classify all information about KX-447 and the Devourers as false and dangerous. The Endurance crew was ordered to delete their records. They were forbidden from speaking about what they found. Any violation would result in exile from Galactic Space. Harris received the message in silence. Then he turned to Derek. Did you make copies? Derek smiled slightly. Copies of the copies. Stored in places they will never find. Good. Harris looked at his crew. The council wants to pretend this threat does not exist. That is their choice. But we know the truth. And humanity will not ignore it. He began composing a message to Earth. Everything they knew. Everything they found. A full report for human leadership, sent through channels the Galactic Council did not control. That night, while the Endurance traveled toward home, the alarms went off. Contact, Derek said, checking his screens. There is a ship behind us. It appeared out of nowhere. Council vessel? Harris asked. No. Derek's voice was strange, scared. The design does not match anything in our records. It is old, really old. And Captain, it should not be moving. The power readings are all wrong. Like it is dead, but still flying. Harris moved to the window and looked out at the darkness. He could see it now. A shape in the distance, blocking the stars. It was twisted, wrong somehow, like something from a nightmare. Looking at it made his eyes hurt. It is one of them, Lisa whispered. A devourer ship. How is that possible? Maria said. They've been asleep for millions of years. The transmission, Harris said. The truth hit him like a punch to the gut. When we sent our report to the council, the signal went through open space. The devourers must have heard it. We woke them up. Derek checked his screens again. It is scanning us. And Captain, it is changing course. Heading toward the Volanthi home system. The nearest populated world. Millions of lives. Right in the path of something that existed only to consume. Harris did not hesitate. Take us to intercept. All speed. We cannot fight that thing, Brooks said. We are an exploration ship, not a warship. We have to try. Harris sat down in the command chair. If that ship reaches the Volanthi, it will kill everyone. And then it will move to the next world, and the next. We are the only ones who can stop it. Maria pushed the engines harder than they were designed to go. The Endurance shot forward, closing the distance to the ancient enemy. "I am trying to communicate," Derek said, sending greeting signals on all frequencies. The response came immediately. A single word, broadcast in hundreds of different languages, ancient and modern. The word was the same in all of them: awake. The Devourer ship turned toward the Endurance. It was faster than it looked. In seconds, it was close enough to fill the view screen. Harris opened a channel to Earth. "This is Captain Daniel Harris of the Endurance. We have made contact with hostile alien vessel. The threat we reported is real. Repeat, the threat is real. Begin preparations immediately. Do not wait for Council approval. Humanity must be ready." The message would take time to reach Earth. Time they might not have. "It is charging weapons," Derek said. "All power to shields," Harris ordered. "Let us see what humans can do against the darkness." The first shot hit them like a meteor. The ship rocked. Lights flickered. But the Endurance held together, and the humans did not run. They flew straight toward the monster. The battle was not fair. The Endurance was small, built for exploring, not for war. The Devourer ship was ancient and powerful, designed for one purpose only: destruction. But the humans did not care about fair. Maria flew the ship like it was part of her body, dodging energy blasts that would have melted them in seconds. The Devourer weapons were slow to aim. Millions of years of sleep had left the systems rusty. It was the only reason they were still alive. "Shields at 30%, Derek reported. "We cannot take many more hits." "Then we stop getting hit," Harris said. "Maria, bring us in close." Closer than they expect. Maria gritted her teeth and pushed the ship forward. The Devourer vessel filled the view screen, huge and terrible. Its hull was not just metal. It was something else, something that looked almost organic. Like the ship was alive. "I am reading life signs inside," Lisa said, checking her instruments. "But they are strange. Not fully biological. Not fully mechanical. Some kind of combination. A constructed species," Harris said. "The builders said the Devourers were created to consume. They are not natural. They were made. By who?" Brooks asked. "Does it matter right now? We need to stop this one before it reaches civilians." Brooks checked his weapons. "If we cannot destroy it from outside, we go inside. Find whatever passes for a brain and put a bullet in it." Harris nodded slowly. It was crazy. It was probably suicide. But it was also the only plan that might work. "Derek, find us a way in," Harris ordered. "An airlock, a damaged section, anything." Derek scanned the enemy ship. "There, on the lower section. Some kind of docking port. It looks like it has not been used in a very long time. That is our door. Maria, get us there. Brooks, grab your team and gear up. You are going hunting." The Endurance swooped under the Devourer vessel, dodging another blast that barely missed them. Maria brought them alongside the docking port with skill that would have been impossible for most pilots. The ships connected with a harsh clang. Brooks led the boarding party. 5 humans in combat armor, carrying the heaviest weapons the Endurance had. Harris wanted to go with them, but his place was on the bridge. He had to trust his people. The airlock opened, and then the team entered the Devourer ship. Inside was darkness. The walls were wet and warm, like the inside of a living creature. The air was thick and smelled of something old and rotten. Brooks moved forward, his light cutting through the shadows. "I do not like this," one of his soldiers whispered. "Nobody asked you to like it," Brooks said. "Stay focused." They moved through corridors that twisted and turned in ways that made no sense. Sometimes the walls moved, shifting slightly as if breathing. They passed chambers filled with strange pods, each containing something that might have been sleeping. or dead. It was hard to tell. These are more of them. Lisa's voice came through the communication system. She was watching through their cameras from the Endurance. The ship is full of devourers. Hundreds of them. Maybe thousands. Are they awake? Brooks asked. Not yet. But their life signs are getting stronger. I think the ship is waking them up. Brooks moved faster. They did not have much time. They found the core at the center of the ship. It was a massive chamber filled with pulsing light. In the middle stood something that looked like a heart, beating slowly, connected to everything around it by thousands of tubes and wires. That is the brain? One soldier asked. Close enough, Brooks said. He pulled out the charges they had brought. Enough explosives to destroy a small building. Plant these around the core. 2 minutes on the timer. Then we run. They worked quickly and quietly. The heart kept beating, unaware of what was about to happen. Or maybe it knew and did not care. It had survived millions of years. What was one more threat? The charges were set. Brooks hit the activation button. Move, he said. They ran up behind them. The ship seemed to realize what was happening. The walls started closing in. The floor shifted under their feet. Something screamed. A sound that was not voice, and not machine, but something horrible in between. They reached the airlock just as the first charge exploded. The blast threw them forward. Brooks felt heat on his back, pain in his leg. But he kept moving, dragging a wounded soldier with him. The Endurance was pulling away. Maria saw them coming and slowed just enough to let them jump across the gap. Brooks pushed his team through, then threw himself after them. The airlock closed. Maria hit the engines at full power. Behind them, the Devourer ship tore itself apart. The core explosion spread through the vessel, setting off chain reactions in every system. The ancient horror that had slept for millions of years died in fire and silence. But before it died, it sent one final signal. A pulse that went out across the galaxy. A wake-up call. On hundreds of dead worlds in the empty spaces between stars, other things began to stir. The Endurance limped home. The ship was damaged, the crew exhausted. But they had won. The first battle of a war that was just beginning. When they reached Earth, they found preparations already underway. Harris's message had arrived. Human leadership had believed it. Ships were being built. Soldiers were being trained. Defenses were going up around every colony. The Galactic Council sent messages demanding explanations. They had detected the battle, seen the Devourer ship die. Now they wanted answers. Harris stood before the communication screen, looking at the frightened faces of the council members. Representative Zereth was there, looking smaller than before. Less certain. You were right, Zereth said quietly. We should have listened. Yes, Harris said. You should have. But what is done is done. Now we deal with what comes next. What has come next? Harris looked at his crew. At the humans who had walked on a Class-15 Deathworld and survived. Who had boarded an ancient nightmare and destroyed it from within. Who had done the impossible because someone had to. We fight, he said. We prepare. We find the weapons the builders left behind. And when the rest of the Devourers wake up, we will be ready. But how? Krath asked. How can anyone stand against such a threat? Harris smiled slightly. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who had seen the worst and decided to face it anyway. The galaxy called Earth a Deathworld, he said. They called humans dangerous. Too violent, too stubborn, too willing to fight for things that cannot be won. Maybe that was true. But right now, the galaxy does not need safe species. It needs survivors. It needs fighters. It needs exactly what humans have always been. He stood straighter. Help us, and we face this together. stand against us, and we face it alone. Either way, humanity will be waiting when the darkness comes." The council was silent. Then, slowly, Zirith nodded. "We will help," he said. "Tell us what you need." Outside the window, the stars burned cold and bright. Somewhere out there, old nightmares were waking up. But for the first time in millions of years, they would not find easy prey. They would find Earth's children, and Earth's children were ready for war.